All right, I'm going to work on this problem. I'm trying to find the probability. It's this first part, A, the probability that Erica will spin an even number on her next spin. So I have my spinner. You see the picture on the side. Well, an even number would be here, a 4 or a 2. And the story told us that each half of the spinner, the left and right, is divided into equal regions. So that'll be important. So we got to figure out the probability of getting each piece, the 2 or the 4, if we have the spinner. Well, hey, what's the probability of spinning a 2? Well, that section is half of the circle, the 2 and the 5, and it's half of a half. So the probability of getting a 2 is 1/4. That's a quarter of the circle. I think you'd agree if you look at the picture. The probability of getting a 4, that's again half of the circle broken up into thirds, right? Half of the circle broken up into thirds. So a third of a half, well, that's 1/6. Again, a third of a half, that's going to be 1/6. So it's 1/6 probability of getting that 4. So I want to figure out the probability of getting the 2 or a 4. Those are my only two even numbers on the spinner. Okay, and that all I'm going to do is go ahead and add the individual simple probabilities up. So the probability of 2 is 1/4. The probability of a 4 is 1/6. So I'm going to add my fractions using giant 1 so I can get a common denominator. I'm going to use 3/3, and I'm going to use 2/2 to get a common denominator of 12. That's going to equal 3/12 plus 2/12. So the probability of getting a 2 or a 4 with one spin is going to be 5/12. Okay. Now we're going to look at the second problem. So let's look at this second problem. The second problem, part B, is a little more complicated because now we want to figure out the probability. What is the probability that she can spin a 4 and then a 5? A 4 and then a 5. So these are two individual events. So I'm going to set up a table. That's one technique we've talked about using. I'm going to use a table. So I set up a table and I wrote down the individual probabilities for each spin. So for instance, two events, right? I have one spin. I want to see if I get a 4. So it's my first spin. What's the probability of getting a 4? Well, it's 1/6. Then my second event is on the top. I want to get a 5. What's the probability of getting a 5? 1/4. Okay. So I wrote this whole table down just to show you how to model it, because that's one of the techniques we talked about in our lessons. But I really only need to know the probability of getting a 4 and the probability of getting a 5. And when we have these two separate events, we're going to multiply them together. One hint is when I'm seeing the probability of 4 and probability of getting a 5, I'm going to multiply those two individual probabilities together. Okay, so remember when we use this area model technique, we could take the probability of 4, probability of 5, we're going to end up right here. That's what we want to figure out. Probability of 4 and a probability of a 5. We're going to go ahead and multiply those two together. That's 1/6 times 1/4. And 1/6 times 1/4, that equals 24. 1/24, excuse me. So the probability of rolling or spinning, excuse me, a 4 and then a 5 is going to be 1/24.